June 8th, 2009. My specific testimony today will focus on the aspect of the charter school decision that involved taking into consideration Gloucester's fiscal condition. As a member of the Gloucester School Committee and as mayor, I probably have the best view of the city's fiscal condition at any point in time. And I just want to give you a couple statements of background. The people gathered here in City Hall today want only the best for Gloucester's children. I myself have 2 children in the Gloucester Public Schools. I speak for many when I say we want excellence in our schools, and many here have fought year after year to protect class size and save programs. The battles have not always been won. And a few examples, over the last few years, we have seen the loss of 77 teachers, 7 bus drivers, 7 custodians, and funding for athletics, all resulting in higher class size, loss of programs, more crowded buses with longer drives, dirtier schools, and skyrocketing fees, the closure of an elementary school, and the involuntary redistricting of over 500 students and staff. It seems as though the cries for improving education in Gloucester have turned a deaf ear towards a system that has been in retreat, and after many years of turmoil is finally just stabilizing. Reform in the classroom and curriculum needs to take place simultaneously with the way schools, public schools, charter schools, vocational schools, and special education schools are funded in the Commonwealth. When the commissioner announced his recommendation to approve the charter school for Gloucester, the press release dated February 13th states, and I'm going to quote, "Commissioner Chester will recommend a new charter school in Gloucester and base its start date on the community's fiscal condition." And the commissioner has just stated today that that was an unprecedented condition, or that even a condition was placed on an approval. The board then included the fiscal condition on the vote it took February 24th. And the summary of that vote from the board in brief states, "The board made it clear that the opening of the school in 2010 will be explicitly conditioned upon Commissioner Chester's determination that the fiscal year 2010 state budget provides sufficient Chapter 70 aid to Gloucester Public Schools to maintain foundation level spending," end quote. So the performance indicator, or the fiscal measure that was used, is foundation level spending, okay? So that sounds reasonable, and it sounds like the DESE is being responsive to the economic crisis that is continuing to unfold around us. But here's the fact. DESE's own data shows that Gloucester spends above foundation level and has for all of the 11 years that are shown on its website. If you take the 11 years and average out how far above foundation level we are, it is about 9%. Gloucester spends above foundation level despite losing 20% of our state aid in 2003, despite being one of the only communities whose aid level has not been restored to previous levels, despite a Chapter 70 formula that is driven by property values as a measure of the community's ability to pay. So a working class community with high populations of low income special education students like Gloucester, which is surrounded by 62 miles of beautiful coastline, is punished because our ability to pay is skewed because of the formula. Senator O'Leary, you live in a community, Barnstable, that suffers from the same thing. So Gloucester spends above foundation level despite the fact that this year alone we will lose 30% of our local aid going into next fiscal year, including being only another handful of communities that will also see Chapter 70 aid reduced. even though there have been bold promises about holding Chapter 70 harmless. Because of that formula, Gloucester comes across as having a great ability to pay, and in that bid amount that's going to be cut from Chapter 70, in all likelihood for fiscal year 2010, Gloucester will see a cut in Chapter 70 aid, including that 30% cut in our other local aid. And Gloucester spends above foundation level despite the fact that only 16% of our school budget is funded by the Commonwealth. The City of Gloucester puts in the other 30 million. So all of these odds are against Gloucester, but year after year, Gloucester does the right thing for its schools and exceeds foundation level. Why would the DESC think for a second that we would all of a sudden reverse our commitment to our children and drop spending below foundation level? The question the DESC should ask is not whether the $6.2 million the state gives us in Chapter 78 is sufficient to maintain foundation level spending. Clearly, it is not. It's a fraction of what the city pays towards education. The question is, how deep should the cuts go to other city services and to the school district to pay for this new expense for which there is no revenue source? When I testified at the hearing in Gloucester in December, I also read into the record testimony from Mayor Kim Driscoll of Salem and from Mayor Scott Lang of New Bedford. Both cities are in the out years of charter school funding, meaning that the dollars that are being diverted from the district to the charter school, the mayors are having, and the city council and the school committee are having to make up that difference through cuts in their existing school district and city services. So in terms of that decision-making process in approving the Gloucester Charter School, you know, the cynical perspective, okay, that we could take for a minute is that perhaps the DESC knew that Gloucester wouldn't turn its back on its children and crash the school budget to below foundation level, therefore stopping the charter school. Perhaps knowing that Gloucester would continue to fund above foundation level, this measure of our fiscal condition was known to be meaningless. All you have to do is look at our track record when it comes to spending above foundation level. But that's the cynical perspective. The perspective that I would like to believe is that the DESC just didn't do its homework on what is a meaningful measure of the community's fiscal condition. Members of the Oversight panel, Madam Chairwoman, it's at this point this is the point of the process that I object to. The DESC did not do its homework on what a meaningful measure of the fiscal condition of the city is. Again, we have a long track record of funding above foundation level. So to use this as a measure demonstrates a complete lack of understanding of our community and the fiscal condition. I expressed this point of view to Secretary Revelle in a telephone conversation on February 24th, and that was also part of my testimony to the Board of Education on, the phone conversation with the Secretary was February 20th, a couple days before the hearing, the vote. And it was also part of my testimony the day the board took its vote on February 24th. I am grateful to have the chance today to make the point again, where hopefully it will be heard. Using foundation level spending as a measure of Gloucester's fiscal condition is a flawed premise in this process. My administration would not hesitate to work with the DESC to define meaningful measures of the fiscal condition of the city should the decision to approve the charter school be revisited. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And are there any questions for the mayor? Nope. Seeing none, now you can go back to your seat. Next, I'd like to recognize Christopher Farmer, the superintendent of schools. If you would come forward.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the Senate.